Hi, hello everyone. Thanks for watching this video. I will be presenting briefly the paper we have submitted to this ICERI 2021 conference. A paper I've been working on with my colleagues Mariangélica, Martínez, Chávez and Agustí, Canals, Parera. And the title of the paper is the one you can see on the screen, Participatory Action Research for Deliberately Changing an Organization's Learning Structure. So I will show you the different parts of it. So what's going on, or what's the context in which this paper is set? So in the age of instability where things are complex and rapidly changing, organizational learning and its strategic management are key for gaining a competitive advantage. And so individuals and organizations need to be continuously learning and fast. That is, they need to be agile and dynamic learners. So within this framework, we decided to carry out this research with the aim of covering the literature gap we identified, as you can see on screen also. So Tackle back in 2016 addressed the following question: how do organizations make the transition towards becoming a learning organization, either unintentionally or deliberately? And this is the question we are trying to contribute with, and we have done it based on two other premises. The first one is that developing a learning organization is not random chance, but a deliberate intervention by leaders to establish the necessary internal conditions for the organization to operate in a learning mode. And a statement addressed by Goa Richards back in 1997 that we still think is applicable to 2021. And the second premise is that building architectures that encourage, facilitate and support learning is an organizational imperative, by Watkins and Kim in 2018. So within this literature gap, we try to do it, to contribute to it, focusing on the organizational learning structure. We think that this is one way in which the organization can act by building the appropriate organizational learning structure, which means putting in place the practices, activities, and processes that are needed to become a learning organization. And to do so, we decided to carry out an intervention in two different enterprises. So, aligned with this idea, this piece of research has contributed to the progress made by two Basque enterprises located in the Basque Country, northern part of Spain, who deliberately wanted to improve their current organizational learning structure. Those are, on the one hand, we have Laboral Kutxa SCOP, which is a cooperative working in the financial industry, and Sener S.A., which is a company working, it's an engineering company. And so, in particular, the foundations of their new organizational learning structure were codified, after which the creation of a new structure began. So our intervention was working with them for codifying the foundations of their new organizational learning structure, because they consciously and proactively wanted to change what they had nowadays. That is why the methodology we employed was participatory action research for organizational development, following a qualitative research approach. This allowed us to address the needs of both enterprises while creating also knowledge to fill the gaps identified in literature. So we had two outcomes with this intervention, which happened during 12 months during the year 2019, just before COVID hitting. So we had a double outcome, which was one covering or contributing to that literature gap I just addressed at the beginning, and also contributing to the needs of those two enterprises. How did we do that? The participatory action research we carried out had 3 cycles. So we made the intervention in both enterprises in parallel. They were independent processes, but we had a similar approach in both of them because the needs they had were similar, although they were different at the end, but the starting point was similar. So each of the intervention cycles had a different objective. The first cycle was aimed to characterize the current organizational learning structure, what they currently had their starting point. The second cycle was used to define the foundations of the new organizational structure. Like I said before, with co-creative sessions, which we based on design thinking techniques, we tried to define with different people from within the organization what were the foundations and the values that their new organizational learning structure should have. And finally, in the third cycle, it was used to co-create a new organizational learning structure following the new creation process. So we suggested certain steps for creating the organizational learning structure they just designed and for making it real. So those were the three cycles, which in participatory action research are known as action and reflection cycles. So about the data gathering process we carry out in these interventions throughout the whole year. First, we conducted 42 individual semi-structured interviews, and then we made some direct observation of 20 co-creation sessions. These are the co-creation sessions we organized ourselves with different people for creating and designing this new learning structure. And concerning the interviews, we carried them out with different level managers and with final users also. So with this, we had a pretty good idea of what was the starting point of the organizations with the interviews we carried out. And concerning the data analysis, well, we used an explanation building approach, and then we carried on with a logic model analysis for analyzing the current organizational learning structure process, the process they use for having this in place, and the learning scenario that this creates in the enterprise. And this was done, of course, in both enterprises. And finally, and taking advantage of the fact that there are two cases, we made a cross-case analysis. And with all this information, we came up with these results, or with these 6 main reflections that you can see now on the screen. So, number 1, the participatory action research carried out with the active involvement of the enterprises has been successful for deliberately changing the design of the organizational learning structure. So, the approach we carried out by using this methodology, by using a design thinking techniques in the co-creating sessions, and by having 3 cycles with different objectives was useful, and we actually achieved the objectives we set at the beginning of this research. Result number 2, the participants' role in the sessions. The ones in charge of a team were less confused about their role in the intervention sessions. So, the thing is, as I said before, although the first approach and the intervention in both enterprises was similar, each of them then has different characteristics and needs. So, in one of the enterprises, the enterprise itself wanted to approach this from the human resources team, and the other one preferred to do it with different departments. In the case of the human resources team, we started working on these co-creation sessions with about 20 people, and they were all technicians from the human resources team. And in this case, they were not in charge of a team. So, although we tried to address it properly, at the end they did not really see the importance of them being in these co-creation sessions. Instead of in the other enterprise, where we had different people from different departments, they were managers with different teams. They had teams to be managed. And so they did see their role in this project because they identified themselves, and they tried to have a look at this project as how they could help their teams, how they could help the development of their teams. And so this was more successful with these people. Moreover, these were chosen by the enterprise because they were considered they could be influencers among the rest of the managers for when we were going to spread this project to the rest of the departments and roles. Result number 3. Focusing on digital personal learning environments has been acceptable as a first approach for encouraging self-directed learning, but it should be managed as a process which requires the provision of ongoing support for the individuals. So at one point in these co-creation sessions, we had a couple of them in both enterprises for helping them work their proactivity in self-development and their responsibility in learning. And so we helped them to build their own personal learning environment by using different digital tools. And so this was quite useful and they did like it, but it's true that it requires a habit change if we want this new approach to carry on and to stick to them. And so we did not have this follow-up or guidance approach, and we didn't see many people sticking to it. So we think that if we want to change this habit and really encourage them to be more proactive in their personal learning aspect, there should be a guidance in the process, not just a couple of sessions for designing their personal learning environment. Now, about result number 4, the number of participants. The sessions were more participative and all people had the opportunity to talk when we worked in smaller groups of 6 people rather than 20. So, as I said before, the approach was different in both enterprises, and in one of them we worked with around 20 people, whereas in the other we worked with around 6 to 8 people. In this case, we realized that it was easier to work with smaller groups because we got to listen to all the members within. Instead, in the group that we had 20 people, not everyone talked, and so we didn't get all the viewpoints of the participants, which was really important for the research. Result number 5. Next steps after co-defining the new organizational learning structure. It would be necessary to begin with the small changes integrated in the workflow and decrease them gradually in order for the project to grow naturally. So our intervention finished with the design of the new organizational learning structure, but we did not carry on with them, or we did not follow the implementation of that new design. So with all the information we have gathered, we do think that it is important to make a follow-up, and if we don't do that, at least for these changes to occur gradually and step by step. At the end, we are talking about change management, and this needs to follow certain steps and certain P's. So in the 2 cases we were working on, we do think that this piece needs to be slower and with more steadier steps. And related to this, we had result number 6, also related to the next step after codifying the new organizational learning structure. For the project to succeed, there is much work to be done in terms of motivating the employees to jump to commit to being involved by showing them the benefits of the project. So we do feel like these organizational learning structures work if people are being part of it, if people are active, if people are proactive in this environment. And to do so, it's really important that we spread the benefits or the what's in there for me to the rest of the employees if we want them to join in. So that's one of the reflections we made, that from now on, for implementing this design and for it to be successful, we really have to make people want to join in this new learning ecosystem or learning structure. And those were the main results we gathered from this research. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to talk to me if you are now in the 8th or 9th of November in the event, you can write me in the chat, and if not, of course, let's keep in touch and let's connect on LinkedIn, for instance, that I'm usually there, so don't hesitate to write. And thanks for watching. Bye.